In the glittering heart of Chicago, on a seemingly ordinary evening in 1993, an incident occurred that would send shockwaves through the city and become a powerful lesson about prejudice, dignity, and the true meaning of class. And if you're watching this video right now, drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from today, because this story of Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, is one that needs to be heard in every corner of the world. The summer air hung thick with humidity as the sun began to set over Chicago's magnificent Mile. The city's most exclusive restaurant, Le Chateau, stood proud among the towering skyscrapers, its elegant facade illuminated by warm golden lights. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over white tablecloths and polished silverware, while the quiet murmur of conversation mixed with the gentle tinkling of fine china and crystal glasses. It was the kind of establishment where reservations were made months in advance, where celebrities and business moguls regularly dined, and where the staff prided themselves on maintaining an atmosphere of exclusivity and refinement. The maitre d', Gerard Dubois, had served Chicago's elite for over 2 decades, and he considered himself an expert at identifying those who belonged, and those who didn't. On this particular evening, a tall figure approached the restaurant's entrance. Despite the summer heat, he wore a perfectly tailored suit that seemed to enhance his athletic frame. His walk was confident but relaxed, the natural stride of someone used to commanding attention without seeking it. Yet there was something else about him, a quiet intensity in his eyes that spoke of countless battles fought and won, both on and off the court. The man was Michael Jordan, fresh from practice at the Chicago Bulls training facility. He'd decided to treat himself to a quiet dinner, something he rarely had time for during the bustling NBA season. What he didn't know was that this evening would become about much more than just a meal. As Jordan stepped through the heavy wooden doors, the usual buzz of conversation dimmed slightly. A few heads turned, recognition flickering across faces, but most remained absorbed in their own dining experience. The maitre d' looked up from his reservation book, his eyes scanning Jordan with calculated precision. "Good evening," Jordan said, his voice carrying the same quiet confidence that had become his trademark both on and off the court. "Table for one, please." Gerard Dubois' expression remained impassive, but there was something in his eyes, a slight narrowing, a barely perceptible shift that spoke volumes. "I apologize, sir, but we are fully booked this evening. Perhaps you'd like to try one of the more casual establishments down the street?" The suggestion hung in the air like a heavy cloud. A nearby couple paused their conversation, wine glasses halfway to their lips. In the corner, a group of businessmen shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The restaurant sommelier, who had been decanting a bottle of expensive Bordeaux, nearly missed his mark. Jordan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes, a look that anyone who had ever faced him on the court would recognize. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was something more potent, determination. The same unwavering focus that had driven him to transform every setback into a comeback, every defeat into fuel for victory. "Fully booked?" Jordan's voice remained measured, calm. "That's interesting. I can see at least 3 empty tables from where I'm standing." Dubois straightened his already impeccable posture. "Those tables are reserved, sir. For our regular clientele." His emphasis on the word regular carried unmistakable weight. The restaurant had grown quieter now, the ambient conversation dropping to a whisper. More diners were turning to watch the scene unfold, their expressions a mix of discomfort and curiosity. Among them sat James Richardson, owner of one of Chicago's largest real estate development companies and a frequent patron of Le Chateau. "Perhaps," Jordan continued, his voice carrying just far enough to be heard by those nearby, "you don't recognize me. I'm Michael Jordan." Dubois' lip curled slightly. "Yes, I'm aware of who you claim to be. However, we have certain standards to maintain. Our dress code is quite specific, and our clientele expects a particular atmosphere." The implications in his words were clear as crystal, sharp as broken glass. This wasn't about reservations or dress codes. This was about something far more insidious, something that even Jordan's worldwide fame and success couldn't shield him from. A young waiter standing nearby nearly dropped his tray, his face a mask of horror as he recognized the six-time NBA champion being turned away. In the kitchen, word had already spread, and the chef, a passionate Bulls fan, gripped his countertop with white knuckles, fighting the urge to intervene. But Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand special treatment. Instead, he did something that would leave an indelible mark on everyone present that evening. His response would demonstrate why he wasn't just a basketball legend, but a master of turning adversity into opportunity. The tension in the restaurant had reached a fever pitch. Diners were now openly staring, their meals forgotten. The sound of cutlery had ceased entirely, replaced by a thick, uncomfortable silence. Even the soft background music seemed to have faded away, as if the restaurant itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. James Richardson set down his wine glass with deliberate care. As one of Chicago's most influential businessmen, he had watched the scene unfold with growing disgust. He had seen Michael Jordan play countless times, had admired not just his athletic prowess but his dignity, his determination, and his impact on the city of Chicago. Now, watching this display of blatant discrimination in one of the city's most prestigious establishments, he felt something stir within him, a mix of shame and responsibility. The maitre d' stood his ground, his posture rigid, his expression a mask of practiced superiority. He represented an old guard, a system of exclusion and prejudice that had no place in modern society. Yet here it was, playing out in full view of Chicago's elite, in a restaurant that prided itself on sophistication and class. Jordan's next move would not only challenge this system but would also demonstrate why he was considered a role model both on and off the court. His response would show that true class had nothing to do with table reservations or dress codes, and everything to do with how one handles adversity with dignity and grace. As the seconds ticked by, the air grew heavier with anticipation. Nobody in the restaurant could have predicted what was about to happen next, or how this evening would become a powerful lesson about respect, dignity, and the true meaning of class. The story of what Michael Jordan did next would soon spread throughout Chicago and beyond, becoming a testament to his character and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful responses to discrimination come not through confrontation, but through something far more impactful. The maitre d' stood firm, his expression unchanged, clearly expecting Jordan to leave. But Michael Jordan hadn't become a legend by backing down from challenges. In fact, throughout his career, he had become known for turning obstacles into opportunities, setbacks into comebacks. And on this warm Chicago evening, he was about to demonstrate why he was considered not just a basketball icon, but a master of grace under pressure. What happened next would become a masterclass in handling discrimination with dignity. Michael Jordan reached into his jacket pocket, not for his wallet or his NBA credentials, but for something that would change the entire dynamic of the evening. He pulled out a small business card, one that didn't advertise his basketball career, but rather his ownership stake in several successful Chicago businesses. The maitre d's expression flickered briefly as Jordan held out the card. "Perhaps," Jordan said, his voice carrying the same calm authority that had led the Bulls through countless crucial games, "we should discuss business rather than basketball. I've been looking to invest in a restaurant in this area." The revelation sent ripples through the dining room. Several patrons who had been pretending not to watch now openly stared. James Richardson, the real estate mogul, set down his fork and leaned forward, his interest piqued. This wasn't just Michael Jordan the basketball player they were watching, this was Michael Jordan the businessman, the entrepreneur, the visionary. Du Bois took the card with visible reluctance, his carefully maintained facade cracking slightly as he read its contents. The card listed Jordan's various business ventures, including his partnerships with major brands and his real estate investments. It was a subtle but powerful reminder that success wasn't confined to a single arena, and prejudice often blinded people to opportunities right in front of them. "You see," Jordan continued, his voice now carrying just far enough to reach the nearest tables, "I've noticed this location for some time. Prime real estate, excellent foot traffic, strong reputation." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Though reputation, as we both know, can be a fragile thing. The implications of his words weren't lost on anyone in the restaurant. Several diners shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others nodded in quiet approval. The young waiter who had nearly dropped his tray earlier was now watching with undisguised admiration as Jordan masterfully turned the tables on his would-be humiliator. But Jordan wasn't finished. With the same precision he brought to every fourth-quarter play, he continued to dismantle the barriers before him. "I believe in investing in establishments that understand the changing face of Chicago's business community. Places that recognize that excellence comes in all forms, and that true class isn't about exclusion, it's about elevation." James Richardson chose this moment to stand up from his table. As one of Chicago's most respected business leaders, his movements drew all eyes in the restaurant. He walked deliberately toward Jordan and Du Bois, his expensive shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. "Michael," Richardson said warmly, extending his hand. "I couldn't help but overhear. If you're interested in restaurant investments, I believe we should talk. I have several prime properties in my portfolio that might interest you." The maitre d's face had now lost its superior expression, replaced by something approaching panic. He watched as two of Chicago's most powerful figures began discussing business opportunities right in front of his podium, effectively transforming his exclusive domain into their impromptu meeting space. Other diners began to stir. A prominent banking executive rose from his table, making his way over. A well-known city council member followed suit. What had begun as an attempt to exclude had transformed into an impromptu gathering of Chicago's business elite, all centered around the man Du Bois had tried to turn away. Jordan's response to discrimination hadn't been to fight fire with fire. Instead, he had chosen to demonstrate why such discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was bad business. He was showing everyone present that true power didn't need to announce itself, and real class had nothing to do with enforcing artificial barriers. The restaurant's owner, having been quickly summoned from his office upstairs, burst onto the scene with a look of absolute mortification on his face. Pierre Leblanc had built Le Chateau's reputation over 2 decades, and now he watched as his maitre d's actions threatened to undo everything he had worked for. "Mr. Jordan," Leblanc said, his French accent thick with emotion, "I cannot begin to express my deepest apologies for this unfortunate incident. Please, allow me to personally escort you to our finest table. Your dinner tonight will, of course, be on the house." But Jordan raised his hand, silencing the flustered owner with a gentle gesture. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary. You see, this evening has become about something more important than dinner. It's become about understanding that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of this city." The young waiter who had been watching everything unfold suddenly stepped forward, gathering his courage. "Mr. Jordan," he said, his voice slightly shaky but determined, "I just want you to know that you've been my hero since I was a kid. Not just because of basketball, but because of how you carry yourself. Tonight, you've shown me why." Jordan's response to the young man's words would be remembered by everyone present that evening. He turned to face the waiter, giving him the same focused attention he would give a teammate during a crucial game moment. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marcus, sir. Marcus Thompson." "Well, Marcus," Jordan said, his voice carrying clearly through the now silent restaurant, "sometimes life's most important victories don't happen on a basketball court. They happen in moments like these, when we choose how to respond to challenges. Remember that." The scene had transformed completely from just 15 minutes earlier. What had begun as an attempt to exclude had become a powerful demonstration of leadership, dignity, and the changing face of success in America. The other diners, who had been silent witnesses to the initial discrimination, were now participants in something much more meaningful. James Richardson, still standing beside Jordan, seized the moment to make an announcement. "I believe this evening calls for something more than just apologies. Michael, what would you say to a partnership? Let's create a new restaurant, right here in Chicago, that sets a new standard for inclusion and excellence. The energy in the room shifted yet again. What had started as a potential public relations disaster for Le Chateau was evolving into something unprecedented, a moment where business, social progress, and personal dignity converged to create real change. Jordan considered Richardson's proposal with the same thoughtful intensity he brought to every business decision. "I appreciate the offer, James," he said, "but I have something else in mind. Something that I think will have an even bigger impact on our city." The anticipation in the room was palpable. Everyone present knew they were witnessing something special, a moment when a potential humiliation was being transformed into an opportunity for genuine social change. Jordan's next words would set in motion a chain of events that would reshape not just Chicago's restaurant scene, but its entire approach to business and inclusion. LeBlanc, the restaurant owner, stood nervously to the side, watching as his establishment became the backdrop for what was clearly becoming a pivotal moment in Chicago's business and social history. The maitre d' Du Bois had shrunk back behind his podium, his earlier arrogance replaced by the dawning realization that his actions had catalyzed something far beyond his control. As Jordan prepared to reveal his plan, the restaurant held its collective breath. The evening had already demonstrated that true class couldn't be contained by dress codes or reservation policies. Now, everyone waited to see how Michael Jordan would transform this moment of discrimination into a legacy of positive change. His next words would prove why he was not just a basketball legend, but a true agent of social transformation. Michael Jordan's voice carried through the hushed restaurant with the same quiet confidence that had defined his career. "What happened here tonight isn't just about one restaurant or one incident," he began. "It's about creating opportunities and changing mindsets. So here's what I propose: I'm going to open not just one restaurant, but a chain of restaurants across Chicago. And these won't be ordinary establishments." The room hung on his every word as he continued to outline his vision. "These restaurants will be called Jordan's Unity Kitchen. They'll be high-end establishments that celebrate diversity, not just in our customers, but in our staff, our management, and our ownership structure. We're going to create a program that helps minority entrepreneurs learn the restaurant business from the ground up." James Richardson's eyes lit up with understanding. This wasn't just about creating another celebrity restaurant, this was about systematic change. Jordan was proposing something that would ripple through Chicago's business community and beyond. Each location, Jordan continued, will partner with local culinary schools to provide scholarships and apprenticeships. We'll create a path for talented individuals who might otherwise never get the opportunity to enter this industry at the highest levels. And we'll prove that excellence and inclusion aren't mutually exclusive, they're interdependent. The banking executive who had joined the growing circle stepped forward. "Mr. Jordan, our institution would be very interested in providing financial backing for such an initiative. This is exactly the kind of project that could transform communities." The city council member nodded in agreement. The city would certainly look favorably on expediting permits and zoning for establishments that promote such clear community benefits. This could become a model for other cities across the country. As Jordan's plan unfolded, Marcus Thompson, the young waiter who had spoken up earlier, listened with growing excitement. This was about more than just restaurants, it was about creating a ladder of opportunity for people like him, who had dreams bigger than their current circumstances. "But here's the most important part," Jordan said, his voice taking on an even more serious tone. "Every year, we'll select one employee from each location who shows exceptional promise. They'll receive full business training and the opportunity to become partial owners in future locations. Success shouldn't just be about serving in these establishments, it should be about owning them." The impact of his words resonated through the restaurant. This wasn't just a response to discrimination, it was a blueprint for transforming an entire industry. Jordan was showing that the true measure of success wasn't just in how you handled adversity, but in how you created opportunity from it. Pierre Leblanc, the owner of Le Chateau, who had been listening intently, suddenly spoke up. Mr. Jordan, he said, his voice thick with emotion, would you consider allowing Le Chateau to be part of this initiative? Perhaps we could be the first establishment to implement your training program. It's clear we have much to learn. Jordan turned to face LeBlanc, studying him thoughtfully. The restaurant owner's request represented exactly the kind of change he hoped to inspire, established businesses recognizing the need to evolve and embrace inclusion. That would depend, Jordan replied, on your commitment to making real changes. Starting with your hiring practices, your training programs, and yes, your door policies. His gaze shifted briefly to Du Bois, who seemed to shrink even further behind his podium. The transformation happening in Le Chateau that evening was remarkable. What had begun as an act of discrimination was evolving into a moment of genuine change. The other diners, many of them influential figures in Chicago's business community, were now actively engaging in discussions about how they could support Jordan's initiative. A prominent real estate developer offered to help identify prime locations for the new restaurants. A marketing executive began sketching out ideas for promoting the training program. Even the chef, who had emerged from the kitchen, eagerly offered to help develop the culinary training curriculum. But Jordan wasn't finished. With the same strategic thinking that had made him a basketball legend, he laid out the next phase of his plan. We're going to document everything, he said. Every success, every failure, every lesson learned. We'll create a blueprint that other cities can follow. This isn't just about Chicago, it's about creating a model for change that can be replicated nationwide. The energy in the room was electric. People who had come to Le Chateau expecting just another elegant dinner were now part of something transformative. Business cards were being exchanged, impromptu meetings were being scheduled, and commitments were being made. James Richardson, who had been taking notes on his dinner napkin, spoke up again. Michael, what you're proposing goes beyond restaurants. This could be adapted for any industry. Would you consider expanding the concept to other sectors once we've proven the model in the restaurant business? Jordan smiled, the same smile that had graced countless victory celebrations. One step at a time, James. But yes, that's exactly the kind of thinking we need. This is about creating a template for change that can be applied anywhere. Marcus Thompson, still standing nearby, gathered his courage once again. Mr. Jordan, he said, how can someone like me get involved in this project? Jordan turned to the young waiter, seeing in him the kind of determination and potential he hoped to nurture through his initiative. Marcus, you already are involved. Your courage in speaking up tonight shows exactly the kind of leadership we'll need. How would you like to be part of our first training cohort? The young man's eyes widened with surprise and excitement. This was the kind of opportunity he had dreamed of but never thought possible. In that moment, everyone present could see the real impact of Jordan's vision, not just in abstract terms, but in the very real difference it could make in individual lives. The scene in Le Chateau had transformed completely. What had started as an attempt to exclude had become the birthplace of an initiative that would change lives and transform communities. The other diners, who had witnessed everything, were now fully invested in supporting the project. As Jordan prepared to leave, he turned to address everyone one final time. His words would serve as both a challenge and an inspiration to all present. The next phase of this evening would prove that sometimes the most powerful responses to discrimination don't come through confrontation, but through creation, creating opportunities, creating change, and creating a legacy that would extend far beyond any single incident. The maitre d', still watching from his podium, had become a witness to how true leadership transforms obstacles into opportunities. His attempt to exclude had inadvertently sparked a movement that would open doors for countless others. It was a powerful reminder that real change often begins in unexpected moments, and that the measure of a person isn't in how they're treated, but in how they respond to that treatment. The story of what happened at Le Chateau that evening spread through Chicago like wildfire. By the next morning, local news stations were already reporting on Michael Jordan's innovative response to discrimination and his plans for transforming the city's restaurant industry. But what happened in the days, weeks, and months that followed would prove even more remarkable than the initial incident. Within 24 hours of the Le Chateau incident, Jordan's office had received over 500 calls from potential investors, restaurant industry professionals, and aspiring entrepreneurs wanting to be part of the Unity Kitchen initiative. The incident had struck a chord that resonated far beyond Chicago's business community. 1 week after the confrontation, Jordan held a press conference at the United Center, but he wasn't there to talk about basketball. Instead, he stood at the podium alongside James Richardson, several prominent business leaders, and Marcus Thompson, the young waiter whose life was about to change dramatically. What happened at Le Chateau could have ended in many ways, Jordan began, addressing the packed room of journalists. But I chose to see it as an opportunity, not just for me, but for our entire city. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the first Jordan's Unity Kitchen will open its doors in 6 months, right here in Chicago. The announcement was just the beginning. Jordan revealed that the initiative had already secured funding for 5 locations across Chicago, each strategically placed to serve different communities while maintaining the highest standards of cuisine and service. But the real innovation lay in the program structure. Each Unity Kitchen would partner with local culinary schools to provide full scholarships to promising students from underserved communities. The restaurants would implement a revolutionary management training program, designed to take employees from entry-level positions to ownership opportunities within 5 years. Marcus Thompson, standing proudly beside Jordan, was introduced as the first participant in the management training program. The young man who had shown such courage at Le Chateau would now be part of the team opening the first Unity Kitchen location. But Jordan wasn't content with just creating opportunities in the restaurant industry. He announced partnerships with major business schools in Chicago, ensuring that Unity Kitchen trainees would receive formal business education alongside their practical experience. This wasn't just about creating employees, it was about creating entrepreneurs. The impact rippled through Chicago's business community. Other restaurant owners, seeing the overwhelming positive response to Jordan's initiative, began implementing their own diversity in training programs. Le Chateau's owner, Pierre LeBlanc, true to his word, completely overhauled his hiring practices and established a scholarship program for aspiring restaurateurs from diverse backgrounds. Even Du Bois, the maitre d', whose discriminatory actions had sparked everything, became an unexpected part of the story. Rather than firing him, Jordan's team offered him a different kind of opportunity, to participate in Unity Kitchen's cultural sensitivity training program and become an advocate for change within the industry. 3 months after the incident, the first Unity Kitchen location began taking shape in a beautifully renovated building in downtown Chicago. The restaurant's design itself told a story of inclusion and excellence, featuring work from local artists and creating an atmosphere that was both sophisticated and welcoming. The kitchen was staffed with a diverse team of culinary professionals and trainees, each selected not just for their skills but for their potential to become future leaders in the industry. The front-of-house team, led by Marcus Thompson, who had completed an intensive management training program, reflected the same commitment to diversity and excellence. But perhaps the most significant impact came from the ripple effects throughout the city. Other business leaders, inspired by Jordan's example, began looking at their own industries through a new lens. Law firms established diversity fellowship programs. Real estate developers created innovative funding mechanisms for minority entrepreneurs. Banking institutions revised their lending practices to better serve underrepresented communities. 6 months to the day after the Le Chateau incident, Jordan's Unity Kitchen opened its doors. The line of people waiting to experience the restaurant stretched around the block. Among them were not just dining enthusiasts, but aspiring entrepreneurs, industry professionals, and community leaders, all eager to see this new model of business in action. The menu itself told a story of inclusion, featuring sophisticated interpretations of dishes from various cultural traditions, each executed with the same excellence that Jordan had brought to his basketball career. The service, under Marcus Thompson's leadership, set new standards for the industry. But the real magic happened behind the scenes. In the kitchen and management offices, the first class of Unity Kitchen trainees was already learning every aspect of the restaurant business. They weren't just learning to cook and serve, they were learning to lead, to manage, and to own. 1 year after the opening of the first Unity Kitchen, Jordan held another press conference. This time, he was surrounded by the first graduating class of the management training program. 20 individuals who had started in entry-level positions were now prepared to take on leadership roles in the expanding network of restaurants. What happened that night at Le Chateau, Jordan said, addressing the graduates, was about more than just one person being denied service. It was about recognizing that change doesn't always come through confrontation. Sometimes, it comes through creation, creating opportunities, creating excellence, and creating a new way forward. The success of Unity Kitchen had exceeded even Jordan's expectations. The restaurant had not only become one of Chicago's most sought-after dining destinations but had also proven that excellence and inclusion could go hand in hand. The training program had a waiting list thousands of names long, and restaurants across the country were seeking to implement similar initiatives. Marcus Thompson, now the general manager of the first Unity Kitchen location, had become a symbol of the program's success. His journey from waiter to restaurant leader inspired countless others to see possibilities in their own careers. His story was featured in business magazines and taught in management schools as an example of how opportunity and determination could transform lives. As for Le Chateau, it too had undergone a transformation. Under new management policies and with a revamped training program, it had become a model for how traditional establishments could evolve to meet the demands of a changing society. The restaurant industry in Chicago would never be the same. The story of that evening at Le Chateau and what followed has become legend in Chicago's business community. It stands as a testament to the power of responding to discrimination not with anger, but with innovation, not with retaliation, but with creation. Jordan had shown that true leadership isn't just about handling success, it's about transforming challenges into opportunities for change. For those watching this video, remember that greatness isn't just about how you perform when everything goes your way. It's about how you respond when faced with obstacles and injustice. Michael Jordan's response to discrimination that evening didn't just change one restaurant, it helped transform an entire industry and create opportunities that continue to impact lives today. If you've ever faced discrimination or seen others face it, share your stories in the comments below. How did you respond? What positive changes were you able to create from those challenging moments? Because sometimes, the most powerful response to negativity is to create something positive that can help others. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about how influential figures have turned moments of adversity into opportunities for positive change. This is your host, signing off with a reminder that true class isn't about who you exclude, it's about who you lift up along your journey to success.